All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive. Today we're taking a look at the Indian media and entertainment sector.
The M&E sector.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got this pretty hefty report from EY and FICCI, the 2025 report.
Shaping the future, it's called.
Right, shaping the future. Plus, we've pulled in some extra data points and industry insights just to like round things out. We want to make sure we're giving you the full picture, but also keeping it concise and clear because I know like nobody wants to get lost in a sea of data.
It's about extracting those key takeaways, those nuggets of insight, without, like you said, drowning in the details.
Exactly, exactly. So let's dive right in. First things first. In 2024, the sector grew by a pretty significant INR 81 billion.
Which,
But here's the thing, it actually slowed down a bit compared to the previous year. And the interesting thing is that even though the overall growth slowed, digital media, live events, and RH advertising were the big divers.
yeah, they were really propelling things forward.
Yeah, and get this new media, which is basically digital and online gaming, now makes up a whopping 41% of the sector's revenue. That's huge. I mean, think about it. That's almost half.
It's a real testament to how consumer habits are shifting and where the investment is flowing.
Yeah, yeah. And when you look at the breakdown of where that revenue is concentrated, video content is king, right? It accounts for a staggering 60% of the revenue. And we're not just talking streaming here. This includes TV, those short videos that, everyone seems to be watching, and of course, social media. Even traditionally non-visual segments like print and radio are getting in on the video action.
I think it speaks to the power of visual storytelling and its ability to engage audiences across platforms.
Makes sense, right? I mean, people love video. Then we've got what they call experiential media, which includes online gaming, going to the movies, live events, and OCH advertising. That's the second largest contributor, sitting at 23%. And then we have text-based media like newspapers and online news, and audio, which includes radio, music streaming. Those make up the remaining 17%.
And an interesting observation from the report is that the abundance of free options in the audio and text formats probably plays a role in that lower revenue share.
Right. There's just so much free content out there.
It does raise some interesting questions about how those segments can, maintain financial viability in the long run.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's talk about the streaming world now, specifically OTT platforms. In 2025, we're expecting to see more OTT content being produced. But here's the catching. The average cost of production is actually predicted to go down. There's this new concept called a TV++ cost model that's emerging, especially for longer-running shows. And interestingly, production houses aren't expecting to make a ton of money from selling satellite and digital rights in 2025. What's your take on all that?
Well, this TV++ cost model, it seems to suggest a push towards more efficient production, right? Maybe using different formats or really finding ways to maximize value within tighter budgets. And as for the satellite and digital rights, it probably reflects the fact that OTT platforms are increasingly holding on to exclusive rights for their own content.
Yeah, it's kind of a power shift in a way.
Right. It changes the dynamics of the whole game.
All right, let's move on to mergers and acquisitions, or M&A as they call it. It looks like things are heating up in the M&E sector, with over 100 deals projected in 2025, totaling a massive INR 876 billion. But there's a distinction here. Traditional media deals, like the big one between Star India and Viacom 18, are fewer, but account for a huge chunk of the value. On the other hand, we're seeing a ton of new media deals, though individually they're generally lower in value. And a key takeaway is that strategic investors are really calling the shots here, accounting for over half the deals and a whopping 94% of the funding. What do you make of that?
Well, the contrast in M&A activity really highlights the different dynamics in play, Traditional media is all about consolidation, trying to gain scale and power in the market. With new media, it's more about snapping up those emerging technologies, those niche digital players, and the dominance of strategic investors. It tells me that people are playing the long game, They're looking to build for the future.
It's about integration, right?
Exactly. Not just quick financial gains, but real strategic plays.
Now let's talk about television. It's a sector that's been through a lot of changes. The report emphasizes that studios and IP owners need to be active across linear TV, connected TV, or CTV, and digital platforms. It's a multi-platform world. Cable subscriptions are going down, but broadband is on the rise, so it makes sense to cast a wider net. We're also expecting to see some innovations in how media companies price and release their content. Broadcasters are going to be reinvesting in their linear TV offerings, and we might see more deals that bundle audiences across traditional and connected TV. What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, I think it really underscores the fragmentation of how people are consuming content. You've got to be everywhere now, and the changes in pricing and release strategies, that's all about adapting to this new reality, finding new ways to maximize revenue across all these different platforms.
It's a new game with new rules.
Absolutely.
And the makeup of TV households is changing too. Pay TV is expected to decline, while free TV is projected to grow, probably because rising incomes make TV ownership more accessible. But the real star of the show is CTV. The user base is growing fast, and people are spending more and more time watching, especially on platforms like YouTube. The report also mentions NTO 4.0, the new tariff order for broadcasting, which could give DPOs more flexibility with pricing. What kind of impact do you think that might have?
Well, it's interesting because it suggests a shift towards more ad-supported models, right? With the growth of free PV and CTV, and the potential pricing flexibility with NTO 4.0 could really shake things up in the linear TV distribution landscape. It'd be interesting to see how it all plays out.
For sure, for sure. Let's shift gears and talk about out-of-home advertising, OH. The sector as a whole is expecting growth. Transit OH, like advertising in airports and on fancy transportation, is leading the way with a projected KGR of 16% until 2027. Traditional OH is also set to grow at a healthy 8%, driven by expansion into areas beyond the big metro cities. And get this, there's increasing integration of digital OH inventory with digital ad networks, with digital budgets increasingly funding DOH campaigns. And there's even a platform called Roadstar being used to measure OH viewership. That's pretty cool.
Right.
What do you think all these trends point to?
Well, I think it shows that OH is evolving, becoming more dynamic and data-driven. You're seeing more targeted approaches with a focus on audience mobility and location. And a measurement platform like Roadstar is crucial for proving the value of OH investments, making it more accountable and transparent.
Definitely. All right, let's talk about print media now. The report suggests that newspaper reach and readership are likely to stagnate, with any growth primarily coming from educated young professionals. Core print revenues are only expected to see a marginal 1% a little tier until 2027, with advertising maybe doing a little better at 2% because of its reach to certain demographics. But subscription revenues might actually decline. And here's the interesting thing. Print companies are starting to diversify into organizing events, and the new readers coming to print tend to be older, which means content needs to be more exclusive and career-focused to attract them. So what's the big picture for print?
Well, it seems like print is trying to adapt, right? Diversifying into events is a smart move to leverage their existing brands and relationships. But the core challenge remains attracting and retaining readership in a digital world. They've got to find ways to offer something unique, something that can't be found online.
Right, otherwise it's a tough sell. Okay, let's move on to content creators. It seems like they might face some challenges in 2025 when it comes to monetization. Premium content on OTT platforms didn't perform as well as expected in 2024, and there's continued pressure to keep production costs down. That's where this TV++ cost model comes in. Production houses also aren't expecting a huge windfall from selling satellite and digital rights, but there's a potential solution in the form of AI. Imagine AI being used for cost-effective localization through NLP for dubbing and subtitling, and virtual production for multilingual shoots. And there are even generative AI tools emerging that can assist with things like storyboarding, music composition, and VFX. That's pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about the role of AI in content creation?
I think AI could be a game changer for creators, especially when it comes to reaching wider audiences. Localization can be really expensive, but AI can make it much more affordable and efficient. And generative AI tools, they could open up a whole new world of creative possibilities. But, it's important to use these tools responsibly. We don't want to lose the human touch.
For sure. And speaking of reaching audiences, grabbing and holding people's attention is becoming a huge challenge, right? Average screen time is going up, but it's fragmented across so many different apps. It's tough to build loyalty. The report talks about strategies like gamification, AR and VR experiences, and even using predictive models to reduce churn. What do you think of these tactics?
They're all about creating more immersive, more engaging experiences. It's not enough to just have good content anymore. You've got to make people feel invested, make them want to come back for more.
Right. And it seems like AI has a role to play here, too. The report highlights 10 key AI use cases for the M&E sector in 2025. These range from AI tools for storytelling, like script generation and identifying plot holes, to the possibility of automated script writing becoming a real thing. AI-powered localization is also emphasized, along with AI-driven music composition. But there are also concerns about the potential risks of AI, like bias, security vulnerabilities, and operational challenges. They really stress the importance of responsible AI principles. So, big picture, what's your take on AI's impact?
AI has the potential to revolutionize the entire media landscape, from how content is created to how it's consumed. But we have to be mindful of the risks. It's a powerful tool that needs to be used ethically and responsibly.
Definitely. Now, this is a big one. Digital platforms have officially overtaken traditional TV to become the largest segment in the Indian M&E sector. It's a major shift. But this presents challenges for advertisers. Trying to plan and execute campaigns across both TV and OTT platforms is getting complicated. So the report highlights the need for integrated ad selling, unified planning of ad inventory, and increased use of programmatic advertising to manage these more complex campaigns. Why is this integration so crucial now?
Because advertisers need to be able to reach their target audience effectively, regardless of where they're consuming content. Integrated ad selling and unified inventory planning help break down the silos, allowing advertisers to see a more complete picture of their reach and impact. And programmatic advertising is the technology that makes it all happen.
It's all about connecting the dots. And speaking of connecting the dots, advertisers are also demanding more transparency and accountability, right? They want to know that their money is being spent effectively. So there's a growing interest in blockchain-powered advertising platforms, which could provide those fraud-proof metrics and build trust. And this is especially important considering how fragmented the audience landscape is in India. The report estimates that there are something like 750 million active screens out there. That's a lot of screens to keep track of. So why is there this push for more transparency?
Well, it comes down to trust and confidence. Advertisers want to know that their ads are being seen by real people and that their budgets are being used wisely. Blockchain technology has the potential to provide that level of transparency and accountability.
It could be a real game changer. All right, let's talk about subscriptions. Digital subscriptions are projected to grow at a CAGR of 13% until 2027, fueled by rising incomes, the adoption of CTV, and of course, great content. Video subscriptions are expected to lead the way, followed by audio and then news. The report even mentions that Geo Hotstar could become like a first subscription pack for a lot of people. But it also points out that OTT platforms need to focus on differentiating their content, and we might see more freemium models popping up. The bottom line is that the focus on subscription revenues is intensifying, driven by lower digital ad rates and a move towards more holistic IP monetization. What are your thoughts on this shift towards subscriptions?
I think it's a natural evolution of the market. As consumers get used to paying for digital content, the focus on subscriptions makes sense. But it also puts pressure on platforms to really deliver value. They need to have a clear content strategy and offer something unique to stand out.
So in the online video market, premium video is expected to see strong growth around 27% in 2025. But interestingly, in 2024, ad revenue actually made up the majority, about 75% of the total revenue in online video. What does that tell you about the balance between ad-supported and premium video?
I think it shows that both models have a place in the market. There are people who are willing to pay for ad-free premium content, and there are others who are happy with ad-supported options. It's about finding the right balance and catering to different preferences.
And when we look at mobile app usage, India is leading the pack, right? The average person spends nearly 5 hours a day on their phone.
Which is incredible when you think about it.
And almost 70% of that time is spent on media and entertainment apps.
Yeah,
That's a huge opportunity for content providers and advertisers.
absolutely. It really highlights the importance of having a strong mobile strategy.
Right. And in the world of online news, the audience is massive, hitting 463 million in 2024. And we're seeing a notable increase in people consuming news in Hindi and other regional languages.
Which is great to see because it means more people are getting access to news and information in their preferred language.
Definitely. And social media, well, it just keeps growing. The user base reached 462 million in 2024. And unsurprisingly, Meta's apps are dominating the landscape.
They're a major force in the Indian digital ecosystem.
Now, in traditional print advertising, we're seeing a bit of a mixed bag. Revenues grew marginally, there were more ad insertions, but ad rates dipped slightly and the number of advertisers decreased. What do you think is happening there?
I think it reflects the challenges that print media is facing. It's a very competitive landscape, and advertisers are exploring other options.
Right, right. The online gaming sector had a bit of a flat year in 2024, with revenue growth being pretty much stagnant. This was largely due to changes in GST regulations. Smaller players struggled, and illegal offshore gaming platforms continue to be a problem. However, there was some positive news. Other participation fee games like Real Money Ludo saw growth. Ad revenue in casual gaming remains steady, and we expect growth in in-app purchases and esports. The report emphasizes the need for regulatory clarity and a crackdown on illegal operators. What are your key takeaways for the future of online gaming?
Regulation is key. A clear and stable regulatory environment is essential for the sector to thrive. And of course, tackling those illegal operators is crucial. As for growth, I think casual gaming, in-app purchases, and esports all have huge potential.
Yeah, it's an exciting space to watch for sure. Now, the film industry saw a slight increase in releases, but the overall box office collection actually went down. This is despite rising ticket prices. Original Hindi films in particular saw a decline in their theatrical revenue. Digital film releases are still growing, but direct-to-digital releases seem to have plateaued. OTT platforms are being more selective, focusing on profitability. The animation segment also struggled both globally and domestically, but there's hope that streamers' budgets for content will rebound in 2025. What do you make of all this?
I think the decline in box office revenue, despite higher ticket prices, suggests a shift in how people are consuming films. Digital platforms are becoming increasingly important, and studios need to adapt. And the expected rebound in streamers' budgets is definitely good news for content creators.
Yeah, it could lead to some really interesting projects. The live events sector is booming. It saw significant growth driven by media companies, government spending, and the general elections. Event companies are also focusing more on creating their own IP. And there's a lot of potential for growth in smaller cities, the next 10 and top 40 cities beyond the metros. Why do you think live events are experiencing this resurgence?
I think people are craving those shared experiences, especially after the pandemic, and event companies are realizing that they need to create their own IP to stay competitive.
And that expansion into smaller cities? That's a smart move, too.
Definitely, it's about tapping into new markets.
The music industry saw revenue growth of 9% in 2024, although radio is still recovering from its COVID dip. Radio did see an increase in non-FCT revenue, which is good. Digital music revenues actually went down, but live events and other income streams helped offset those losses. We're also seeing a move towards paid music subscriptions, with potentially some interesting pricing and bundling innovations on the horizon. What are your thoughts on the state of the music industry?
Well, it's clear that the music industry is evolving, exploring new revenue models and adapting to changing consumer habits. The growth in non-FCT revenue for radio and the shift towards paid subscriptions are both interesting trends.
And those pricing and bundling innovations, that could be a game changer for the subscription model.
Absolutely.
Now, when it comes to sports media rights, we saw pretty flat deal values. Linear TV ad volumes and the number of advertisers declined. However, sports endorsements, especially in cricket, saw strong growth. Big events like the IPL and regional cricket leagues are still drawing massive audiences. But there's a possibility that media rights values might need to be adjusted if new digital bidders don't step up. What are your thoughts on the dynamics at play in sports media?
The flat media rights deals suggest that the market might be reaching a saturation point, and the decline in linear TV advertising points to the shift towards digital platforms. The strong growth in endorsements shows that brands are finding creative ways to engage with fans.
It's a dynamic landscape for sure.
Absolutely.
From the perspective of content production houses, the focus is very much on quality. But the high costs of acquiring sports media rights are putting a strain on budgets for entertainment content. There's a real need for talented writers, and we might see some changes in content monetization in 2025, with satellite and digital rights potentially bringing in less revenue. What are the big challenges that content producers are facing?
I think finding that balance between quality and cost is a major challenge. The cost of sports rights is a real factor, and it forces production houses to be more strategic about their investments. And the changing landscape of content monetization means they need to be adaptable and explore new revenue streams.
It's a competitive landscape, no doubt about it.
It is.
But there's some good news. Indian content is making waves globally. It's performing really well on international streaming platforms like Prime Video and Netflix.
It's great to see Indian stories and talent finding a global audience.
And now, a quick look at what marketers are thinking about. They're generally optimistic about consumer spending, but they're still struggling with effectively using consumer data and improving their marketing tech capabilities. Their top priorities for 2025 are refining their media mix, building their own first-party data, creating engaging content, and optimizing their MarTech stack. And their biggest challenges: accurately measuring ROI and figuring out how to best integrate AI into their strategies. What are your thoughts on these priorities?
They make sense. Data and technology are crucial for modern marketing, but figuring out how to use them effectively is the real challenge.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of new and emerging marketing channels to consider, including addressable TV, content marketing, interactive advertising, scaling ads on CTV, digital OAH, e-commerce and quick commerce platforms, live events, gaming, and targeting regional language consumers. It's a pretty diverse mix.
It's a reflection of how consumers are interacting with media. Marketers need to be present across all these touchpoints.
And there's one more important issue that we need to touch on: ad fraud and brand safety. The report highlights the high levels of invalid traffic on digital ad platforms and the risks associated with ads appearing alongside unsafe or inappropriate content. These are persistent problems, aren't they?
They are, and they can be really damaging both financially and reputationally.
Absolutely. Just a quick note on the economic context. India's projected GDP growth remains strong compared to global averages. The M&E sector has typically outperformed GDP, but it did lag a bit in 2023 and 2024. However, there's increasing global demand for Indian audiovisual content, and the report suggests that consolidation and a focus on global reach could be beneficial for the sector.
I think that's a key takeaway. There are huge opportunities for the Indian M&E sector on the global stage.
Definitely. And finally, a quick look at the tax and regulatory landscape. There have been some significant changes, including updates to corporate tax rates, regulations on share buybacks, and the removal of angel tax. There have also been amendments to the double taxation avoidance agreement with Mauritius and clarifications regarding indirect taxes. And there are significant developments on the regulatory front in areas like broadcasting, advertising, online gaming, AI, and data privacy. It's a lot to keep up with.
It really highlights the importance of staying informed about these changes. They can have a major impact on businesses operating in the M&E sector.
So to wrap things up, the Indian media and entertainment sector is going through a period of significant transformation. Digital and experiential media are on the rise. AI is both a powerful tool and a potential challenge. The advertising landscape is evolving rapidly, and the regulatory environment is increasingly important. Hopefully, this deep dive has given you a better understanding of these trends.
I think we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. And on that note, I want to leave you with a final thought. With all these advancements in AI and the growing globalization of content, how do you think your own media consumption habits and expectations might change in the years to come? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining us.